Now recording. So, we've started using Laravel. We started doing that last class for the second half. So, what needs, you need to load up VirtualBox, Oracle VirtualBox, and get the VM for Laravel up and running. Otherwise, you won't be able to do any of the examples I do in class today. So, the process for doing that, if you go to the modules, there is a category which you've probably, it's not in the mirror mode. One moment, please. There we go. There's a module which you've likely just kind of skipped over for the majority of the class so far, Laravel installation. So, this link here, Laravel setup.ova, that is the virtual machine. Please download that now. It's approximately a 6 gigabyte download, so it's quite hefty. So please get that started immediately.
Do you mind walking me through the process of unpacking it onto my hard drive again? You
Yes.
mentioned it yesterday, but I don't really remember.
So let's get Laravel, or let's get VirtualBox up and running. So if you go to File, Import Appliance, you need to select the Laravel VM, right? The OVA file that you're unpacking. Open. This is actually the one that I created at the end of class yesterday. I didn't expect to still find it here, so there you go.
I also still have it on mine, surprisingly, too. The one that I unpacked from yesterday, but I want to get it on my hard drive now.
Yeah. So if you go to Settings, the drop-down Settings, Machine Base Folder is the location on the hard drive where it will unpack. If you click here, Other, you can use your regular Select Folder dialog to select whichever folder you wish. Perhaps, your network drive or any USB you might have, network discovery is turned off, sure. You can choose where to put it from this dialog. And then, for me, I'm just going to choose Documents, maybe make a new folder in there, VMs, select folder, there we go. Leave all of the rest of these settings as they are. Click Finish, and it will begin importing the appliance to that specific folder. Did you get it working? Awesome. So, how are you doing?
I haven't found you said in the Laravel basis, right? In this section?
Oh, no, it's Laravel installation. It's at the top. Keep going. Up.
It's
Right,
top.
Yep. Before the week starts. Wait, there it is. Laravel setup.ova. So then you'll want to open up VirtualBox. Yep, download. Yep, save it. Now, from your start menu, VirtualBox.
We have it here.
Yeah, it's installed natively on these computers. If you want to do this on your own computer, you'll need to install it, of course.
I have the VirtualBox in my computer.
Good. Then go to File, or actually you can just click Import here. Have to wait until the file's done downloading, but once it is, select that file, unpack it, and you'll be off to the races. So, double click on one of the virtual machines to power the VM up.
longer to unpack on my hard drive than it did yesterday on the actual.
That's probably my wife. Put you on silent. Unless the house is burning down, let me just check, just to make sure the house isn't burning down.
Nope, your house is burning down, she's contacting the fire department and not you.
Correct. Nope, it's good. Today is Felix's 4th birthday, so. Yes, it will be slower to one of those than to a regular normal hard drive, but the advantage is, of course, the portability. This is the same technique that the networking program uses all the time. They are very heavily into VMs.
We were
So.
supposed to do this semester in operating systems. Doug told us like 20 times last semester that we needed a hard drive for this semester, and then we never ended up doing it.
Well, not till the very end, anyway. So, did you get it imported? Or is it downloaded? Ah, very good, very good. So, once again, our password is Laravel. It's the same as the username, but with a lowercase l.
Even if we open it at like on the computers and stuff at home, it will ask for password as well?
Yes. So, you must understand that the virtual machine isn't even aware that it's running inside of another operating system, right? As far as the virtual machine is concerned, it is the only operating system. So yes, you have to do the login, the boot procedure, like it's booting right from being in an off state, right? So yeah, you do have to log into the user account, even if you've already logged into the computer that's hosting this. So there we have it. This is the big, bright, and beautiful Linux Mint. Still unpacking, right?
No, I opened it.
Okay, awesome.
It's asking for the password.
Very good.
I lost my mouse on the screen.
Try pressing the host key, which is bound to this control. Yep. Yeah.
I swear I tried pressing that, it didn't work.
Oh, you have to try it at least 3 times for it to work, you know? So, just to review the process for creating a new Laravel project, just in case, you know, there's maybe some people here who weren't here yesterday. The process, there's actually a very, very helpful guide document here. Ubuntu image usage README. Now, it's not Ubuntu anymore, it's Mint, but Mint is a Ubuntu derivative, so everything broadly still applies, right? It just, like even VirtualBox thinks it's Ubuntu, but it's actually Mint. But if you scroll down a little bit, this is the line, this is the command to create a new Laravel project. So, did you see the Linux survival guide document I posted to the announcements a couple of weeks back?
I haven't checked that.
I would recommend looking into it because it will be helpful here. So, you need to do a little Linux now. Just a bit. So, like, you know, you had another class where they kind of talked about Linux a little bit. Well, in this class, we're going to actually try to use Linux to do something useful, which is design a web application. Sound good? So this is the command to create a new Laravel project. Here we go. I'm going to put it on the board because, like, if you're working with VMs at your, that's very loud.
It sounds very loud.
I hope that the video isn't picking that up.
Yeah, she's looking at YouTube or something like
Yep. Yes, he has. And, you know, for the benefit of the one student he's got in that classroom too. So, a couple of recommendations. Okay. Here are some helpful hints, not only with working with Linux, but working with VMs, right? Number one, you will want to get yourself an external hard drive. Not a USB key, they're not fast enough. An external hard drive like the one that Phoebe has, right? I recommend either Western Digital or Kingston. Don't go for an AData, they're a bit on the cheap side, not fast enough. Because you can unpack the VM onto the hard drive, that way you don't have to like download, unpack, repack.
that. How big should it be?
Oh, half a terabyte is plenty of space. I think the smallest ones I've seen around lately are 1 terabyte. So yeah, just make sure when you buy it that it's like not a old used one. You know, like get a fresh one. Make sure it's an SSD as well. They're a bit.
Kingston. I'll use Kingston. I have it.
Perfect. The size of the image itself isn't like fully unpacked. Your probably disk usage should be under 10 gigabytes. But you know, 10 gigabytes is still a lot of gigabytes, right? But yeah, get one of those. That will the VM is an operating system. Any changes you make in there are persistent, right? But if you lose the file, you've lost all of the work you've done in the file, right? So that's why, like, keeping it on the lab computer, I wouldn't recommend, right? You never know whether it's still going to be there when you arrive the next day, right? In our case, it seemed like it was, but it may or may not, right? So that's hint number one. Put it on external media. Only an external hard drive is fast enough to support an operating system. Okay? Number two, if you have an area in your home where you work, the best way to set up VMs is to use 2 monitors, right? So you have your VM running on one monitor, and you have your host operating system running on the other monitor, because it's useful to have both, right? Otherwise, you're constantly having to context switch between the 2 of them, as I will be doing here today, and it's confusing and annoying and breaks your workflow. It's very useful to have that second monitor, okay? What was the other thing? Yeah, the guide document will be helpful because you're now in a Linux environment expected to do like run bash commands and that sort of thing, right? So I hope you were paying attention in that other course that did a little bit of Linux stuff, and I hope they were telling you things that were relevant. So crash course in Linux, right? Other thing. For Linux operating systems in general, the thing that you want to make yourself is a quick reference sheet. You want to write down all of the commands that you're asked to use on a piece of paper, tape that up wherever you do your work. That will be extremely helpful, especially if you don't have a second monitor. So the command to create a new Laravel project, compose, create -project, Laravel /Laravel, and then you give it a name. You name the project as the final argument, right? So, in our VM, the way that you enter command line commands is using this application here, which is Terminal. So let's open up terminal. There we go. So this is a bash terminal. Mac has its own type of terminal, but you can get to this one from Mac just by typing bash. So when we create a new project, we will create it in the folder that the command prompt is currently in, its current working directory. To view what the current working directory is, the command is pwd print working directory. You can see that we are in home/Laravel. This is the home folder for this user. We could create a new project here, but that would be unwise because creating a project creates a whole lot of subfolders. Really, you want to go into a new folder and then unpack a new project, right? So, command number 2, ls. The ls command lists the contents of the directory you are currently in, right? Directory means folder, but directory is more correct. So you can see I have a folder here called Laravel Projects, right? I want to change my working directory so that I enter that folder, that directory, right? The command for that is cd, change directory. A couple of nice hints along the way. Bash features autocomplete using tab. If you can, if only the first, all you have to do is type a number of letters that are unique to the folder you want. Hit tab, and it'll complete the rest for you. So now we're in Laravel projects, pwd home/Laravel/Laravel projects. You can see we've got hello-world, which is a project that we were working on previously. So let's create a new project. Composer, create-project, Laravel/Laravel, and then give it a name. I think in my case it'll be 2025-04-01. If you enter that, you can see it does a lot of downloading. Right now it's downloading all of the libraries that are necessary to create the new project. You can see that on this one I've already downloaded a lot of these libraries, so it went reasonably fast. On yours, because it's a fresh one, yeah. So, yes, you need, sorry, I forgot. mkdir is make directory. Type that out to create the directory, then you can enter it. Sorry about that.
What did you put at the end of your file name? Like dot? It would be not dot .php obviously, but that.
So, nothing. It's a folder name, not a file name. Yeah. You actually don't need the slash. There you go. pwd. You're in the right directory now. So now, copy down that command, composer create project. Oh, you have to enter the rest of it as well, sorry.
Oh, the
Laravel
thing?
/ Laravel, yeah. And then give it a name. I gave it today's date, yeah. Oh, no. The angle braces are like when I say, that's my way of saying you insert something.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so just seeing the thing.
Yeah. And you can see it's downloading and extracting and creating. When you see the little $sign,
Yeah.
it's finished. So. Okay. So. I'm going to go into yesterday's project. Let's just remind ourselves, take a look at what we have inside of a Laravel project. Most of this is stuff you don't have to worry about, right? But there are a couple of key folders and files that will serve as our entry points to MVC architecture as we studied previously in vanilla PHP, right? So the very first and most important one is roots. Pardon me. So cd roots, there we go. You can see we have console.php, web.php. This one is how we create the first part of the controller that listens for incoming network packets. So we write routing rules that listen for particular types of packets, and if it receives those packets, shows particular information back to the server. So, if you could please open up Visual Studio Code, this guy right here.
In that case, it's in whatever.
Go to Open Folder, Laravel Projects. That one, yeah. Oh, just click Open. Because you're wanting to open the folder. There we go. Yes, you trust yourself. Good. Go to roots, web.php. There you go. So, quick synopsis. This is the one that you start off with by default for Laravel. These are the ones that we wrote yesterday in class. So quickly going through it. Get is the method of the request. This could be, in our case, get or post, right? This string is the portion of the URL which follows the domain, but does not include query parameters. So if I say www.youtube.com/watch would be my root. Does that make sense? So we then have a callback function, very similarly to how we have callback functions for events in JavaScript, right? It's just the function that activates when an incoming packet requesting that route comes in. Does that make sense? So let's fire up the server and then you can see this actually working kind of similarly to XAMPP. Okay? You can see XAMPP is also inside of this installation, but we shouldn't need it. So, if we go back to our terminal, projects, there we go. So make sure that you are inside of the folder containing the project, right? So for you, this will be CD, change directory, and then the name that you gave the project. If you need a hint, use ls to see what the folder's name is.
After CD, what do I write?
Try pressing tab a bunch of times. Yeah, there you go. Press enter. There you go. Now, the command to start the server up is php artisan serve. php artisan serve. Oh, pardon me. Serve. There we go. Looks like I've got a syntax error.
Is our best place to find all of the commands going to be the slides?
The best place to find all of the commands is to write down the ones I use in class. The slides have a lot of information in them that we're not going to be able to get through. So they're very dense. I would just recommend writing this down. Make some notes. All of this information is there. Actually, so far, I believe that this stuff is inside of the Ubuntu image usage README. Yeah, basically, these two commands are in the README. You should definitely read the README, but yeah. So that's like your first stop. Then the slides secondary. So let's see here. Oh, another quick tip for working with a bash prompt. You can scroll through previous commands by using the arrow keys. If you need to re-enter one, you don't have to retype it. There we go. I fixed my missing semicolon. Now I have server running on 127.0.0.1 port 8000. In your networking class, did they tell you anything about IP address 127.0.0.1?
Is that mobile?
Nope. It's localhost. Anytime you see that IP address, that is localhost. So, because it's now up on localhost, if we open a web browser, we can go to local, you can see it's remembered me, but if we go to localhost /at port 8000 with an empty root, you can see that we get this kind of slightly fancy Laravel 12 splash page, right? That is the first rule, the default rule that they gave us by default. Let's try /hello. You can see that the server has responded with the string hello world, right? If we consult our source code, you can see that return hello world, that's hello world is the return value of that rule. So let's take a look at the second rule. Here we have something a bit different. The curly braces mean that n is a variable. We're reading string information out of the URL, right? That gets passed to the function as its first argument. So whatever the user types into the URL address bar in this spot becomes that variable. We can then use that inside of programming statements, right? So, if we, there we go. If we go to here, name/Nick, you can see that the value I've put here gets bound to this variable, gets stuck in the string like that. Remember that in PHP, dot means concatenation. Making sense so far? Any questions? Okay, so now I would like to show you how to send actual files. Right? So this is all well and good, right? It's wonderful to be able to do that. However, we need to be able to send HTML documents. We need to send JavaScript. We need to send CSS, right? So let's explore another folder. Here we go. I'm going to need a new tab. There we go. So we are now going to be examining the resources folder. In a Laravel project, the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, all of your client-side stuff, goes in the resources folder. It's very important with a Laravel project that you put things where Laravel expects to find them, otherwise it won't find them, right? You can't just add an HTML file to a random folder, right? You can't put all of your files in, like, everything you're working on can't just be dumped into one folder, right? You have to use the structure that Laravel has given you, okay? So, change directory to resources. You can see that resources is subdivided into three, count them, three subfolders. Hopefully self-explanatory. We've got CSS for our CSS files, JS for our JavaScript files, and views for our HTML files. So let's start with the basics. Let's take a look inside of views. At the moment, we have welcome.blade.php. Now you may be wondering to yourself, what on earth does .blade, what's that doing in there? We're getting there. But let's, for the time being, file, new file, hello world.html. There we go. Save that in resources, views, hello world.html. You can tell by the fact that I'm using HTML here that I don't intend to do any PHP in this file whatsoever. Otherwise, I would have to have the .php file extension. That's fine. This is just a static HTML page. Throw in our Emmet abbreviation, title, hello world. Hello, Laravel. Just a standard HTML page, right? So we now have this somewhat small resource. It is one of our views. What we now need to do is we need to hook up the, we need to hook this up to one of our routes or create a new route for it so that this file is accessible to the user, right? We need some way to send this page to the user. So let's go back to our routes. Let's write a new route. Route, colon, colon, is the scope resolution operator. Get. I'm going to pick a string slash pages slash hello. Function, doesn't take any arguments. There we go. Now, you'll notice with the default one that there we go. With the default welcome page that they gave us, we're using this interesting function here, view. What this is doing is it's looking up the view that we are intending to send. We specify the view by its name, right? So, we can return view, and what did I name the file?
Hello world.html.
Oh, it's right up there. Hello world.html. But if you'll notice, this one doesn't have a file extension, so this one doesn't have a file extension. So let's try it out. Save, 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 save. Let's go to localhost /pages/hello. And there you have it. Hello, Laravel. Now, I know that this looks more complicated to set up than plain vanilla web applications. And that's true. But if you learn the system, you can get things done much, much faster than you could otherwise. Right? Which is kind of like, in actual practice, almost nobody programs in vanilla PHP. That's not how you do a web application in 2025, right? The way that you do a web application in 2025 is you use a system like this. It takes all of the common repeated code and does it for you so that you get to spend your time doing the interesting work of designing the website. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, good. There we go. So that's how you serve a static HTML file. Does that make sense? Any questions? It's fairly straightforward. Okay. So now, let's talk about the Blade templating engine. So the point of the templating engine, it's to do something that PHP was doing already, but slightly more, just slightly quicker, and with less syntactic annoyance. So previously, if we wanted to insert dynamic information into a web page, we would have, our paragraph, hello, comma, something, exclamation point, end paragraph. If we wanted to slot like someone's name in here, similar to how we're doing here, what we would do is PHP echo name, and PHP tag. Or alternatively, PHP has a slightly more compact syntax for that. That works as well. So the templating engine is a little bit like this, but it includes more things that allow you to use some general control flow, which really, it's really there that it starts to improve, outshine the vanilla PHP way of doing things, although it's fundamentally accomplishing the same task. So the way that Blade works is you are just typing your regular HTML, right? You're designing your web page. When something in the web page needs to be dynamic, you insert whiskers. That is to say, 2 curly braces, a double curly brace. This is sometimes called handlebars, this is sometimes called mustache, this is sometimes called whiskers. I don't know, whiskers is just kind of a more fun word to say. So in this example, name needs to be supplied by the template array. So Blade is a templating engine which is provided by Laravel. It creates views using the template engine directives, which template engine directives are most of them are like if statements and loops, right? Except you're repeating sections of HTML, right? Or optionally showing sections of HTML. Again, nothing you couldn't do in PHP, but so it goes. PHP code can be used in Blade templates, which means templates we create using vanilla PHP, like our MVC pattern, for the most part can be transferred over to Laravel. So it is compatible with existing PHP files. Blade view files are compiled into native PHP and cached until changed. This reduces overhead. It means that when you write something using the Blade template engine, it doesn't have to be rerun every time somebody loads a page. Remember that one of the big things that you want to do on a server is reduce the amount of time you spend processing. So we load views. We load view files with the view method, where the first argument is the name of the view to load. Very good. View files are typically nested in subdirectories. So for example, in our case, we just dropped our HTML page directly in resources/views. But in a typical web application, you might have views/pages, sidebars, widgets, e-commerce, because one of the advantages here is that we are modularizing the HTML, right? Because we're modularizing it, we end up with a lot of modules, right? We can reference nested subdirectories with dot notation using view. So if I wanted to access resources, views, widgets, e-commerce file, I would say widgets.ecommerce.file. That's how you would specify that using the view method. To pass data to the template, we can include a second argument in the call to the view method. You can see we have an associative array as the second argument to the view. This is how we pass data in. We can also use the with method, but I think you'll find this one to be a little bit easier to use because this one maps directly onto the TPL that we set up when we were discussing MVC architecture. Make sense? So, let's do an example of that, shall we? Let's modify our root to take a new parameter n for name. Let's pass that into the function. Pass that into the function. And now, let's set up a TPL at, oh, get out of here you, at name is equal to n. We can then pass the TPL in like so. As long as I don't forget the semicolon. There we go. So as you can see, this is reasonably similar to how we were doing things in vanilla PHP, right? Passing the template array into the view, we now have access to name. You can also create them globally, but let's just get it viewing, right? We can use handlebars keyframe, or key name, sorry, or whiskers key name to output the values. So let's go to our hello world.html will need to be renamed. And we'll have to name it .blade.php at this point. That's okay. Let me show you another handy Linux command. mv move. This is the same thing as rename. So we can move hello world.html to hello world.blade.php. And that renames the file. Now, if we open that file back up again, resources, views, hello world.blade, we should be able to. Your name is name. There we have it. You know, we were doing something right because that auto-completed. So, save that up. Let's go back to our web browser, Firefox. Hello/Nick. Your name is Nick. So it works! Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. We will need to continue this discussion Monday of next week. I hope that we will be able to finish all of the Laravel material in time to be able to do some review next week, as next week is the last week of classes. So, sound good? If we don't, the problem though is we must get through the Laravel material right? If we don't get through the Laravel material, you won't be able to do assignment 5, so that has to come first. And if anybody out there in television land is missing the class today and yesterday, possibly, and is listening to this, please make sure you're up to speed on this stuff by next week so that we don't have to spend too much time next week going over stuff that you should have been learning in class this week. Okay? Okay.